and welcome to PKN's Industry Update. Today our topic is product stewardship and extended producer responsibility. Now, Australia's packaging industry has long argued that voluntary stewardship can only take us so far. But what does a mandatory extended producer responsibility system actually look like, and how would it work in practice? A new report by sustainability and circular economy expert Helen Millicer, the CEO of One Planet Consulting, examines more than 20 international EPR systems and concludes that Australia now has an opportunity to move beyond fragmented regulation towards a nationally coordinated framework that supports investment, innovation, and circularity. Helen joins me today for Industry Update to explore the report's key findings, what they mean for packaging, and how Australia can build an EPR system that's fit for the future. Welcome, Helen. Now, you spent, Helen, 6 months studying producer responsibility systems around the world. What surprised you most? And has it changed the way you think about Australia's packaging system?
Hello, Lindy, and welcome to your listeners. Indeed, 6 months was my time in Europe, but I have been working in this space, as you know, for decades, working in government and in industry as well, for a better future for Australia. What surprised me most was how efficient and well coordinated our good systems overseas, and the contrast with Australia, which is such a fragmented system here. We have state-based container deposit schemes, we have a national covenant, we have poor accounting for actually what comes into the market, we have extensive free riders in the system. We have really an uncoordinated system. And I sometimes think if we had put monkeys in charge of this, or if we tried to design a worse system, I don't know that we could have. Really, it is highly inefficient for business. It's extremely costly for households. And for a 21st economy like Australia, we can do better.
Well, that's a bit bleak, and but these are not new facts that you're telling us here. Having immersed yourself in this research, what gives you confidence that Australia can actually get packaging EPR right?
I think a key thing is that so many people now realise the system is broken. And it's when you have a momentum like that, that you have greater confidence that it can be fixed. Also, a key factor, and it may not seem like very significant, is that we now have a national EPA. And the national EPA is the perfect entity to be the national regulator for extended producer responsibility in this country. So it is a fundamental building block that's been put in place under the previous term of government, which now means that we can bring our packaging system under one umbrella. We can have one regulator, one set of regulations for all packaging, whether imported or locally manufactured, and we can move forward from there. So I have far more confidence now that that major initiative enables us to move forward to the 21st century.
That national EPA is all of 7 days old. I think it launched officially on the 1st of July. And yes, that did certainly spark hope for me. Now, your report reframes EPR as productivity reform, not just recycling policy. For packaging, what does that shift change in practical terms for brands, packaging manufacturers, recyclers, and for government?
Indeed, it is, I think, having one regulator is an important thing, moving away from 8 different container deposit schemes. And I know, for example, the Australian Beverage Council is supportive of this unification and harmonisation as well. Structural reform over the next few years, I think, will put us in a far better position than the confusing one we're in at the moment. I mean, if I take, for example, the leading countries in Europe and overseas, from Belgium to Italy to France, the majority of best performing countries have one national regulator, one national producer responsibility organisation for packaging. In the case of Belgium, they have one for C&I and one for household consumption. But the majority of high-performing countries have one regulator and one PRO for packaging, which means that all the data comes together, the information is trusted and held by a not-for-profit entity, not a for-profit entity, one not-for-profit entity who operates in the public and government interest on behalf of the brand members. It's a very elegant and efficient coordination system and lowest cost for all concerned.
Now, the packaging industry broadly accepts that voluntary stewardship has reached its limit. We all know that. What should a mandatory national packaging EPR scheme actually fund? And we're looking at the full spectrum: collection, sorting, recycling, recycled content markets, design incentives, consumer education, or all of the above.
It can do, and in the best performing countries, that's exactly what they do. So at the moment, we have almost none of that. Our CDS schemes, which are in a sense a form of container deposit, form of EPR, only fund collection, really, and sorting. Really good EPR systems overseas have extraordinary collection rates, which enables extraordinary sorting rates. I mean, Belgium, for example, is nearing 80% of recycling of material through their sorting and recycling facilities for that to be available at end markets. Italy's not far behind at about 74%. Australia's been fairly static in the 50% range. So certainly they can improve the collection rates, the drop-off, the separation systems, the processing. They can provide extraordinary incentives, such as, I think in Belgium it was about 300 million euros per year that they are able to invest for their community at a really small amount of around about, I think it was 52 euros per person per year. So it's an extraordinarily efficient system. Even Brazil introduced EPR scheme in 2010, 16 years ago. They have now introduced another regulation last year for more reuse of reusable packaging, particularly for agriculture and industry. So they have been on this journey of continuous improvement. They have invested in reuse like other countries. Australia has not invested in reusable packaging at all. So we can do so much more. Italy has almost universal collection for all households across the whole country. They don't have separate systems like we have, one in one state and one in another state. It's extraordinary what can be done, which yields extraordinary collection rates and return rates, and therefore quality reprocessed material back into manufacturing again. And it's only through EPR that these countries have mandated recycled content. So we have associations here in Australia who are calling for the government to mandate recycled content. Those countries only do it through EPR. If you don't have mandatory EPR, you don't have mandatory recycled content, period.
Now, in Australia, we have APCO and all the sustainability reporting that goes with that. We have ARL, Australasian Recycling Label, National Packaging Targets, CDS, Soft Plastic Stewardship, Curbside Reforms, State-Based Regulation. How should a mandatory packaging EPR framework simplify this landscape rather than just add another layer?
It won't add another layer as a substitute for those things. So an EPR scheme is a not-for-profit entity that comes in to run these sorts of initiatives on behalf of the public, the members and the government. These organisations that you mentioned will morph into, hopefully, one EPR for packaging for Australia into the future. In the report, I have outlined how that can be done. I have recommended and encouraged the government to announce regulations for packaging EPR in 2026 to come into effect by 2028, and that there be a independent entity, if you want to call it a broker, that comes in to assist bringing parties together for that deadline date. Because certainly we can't afford to keep this fractured system going for long without good signals to the market as to what is good packaging to put into the market, and to support the kind of major multi-million-dollar investments we need in sorting and reprocessing of material in this country.
So your report points to international models, particularly Belgium and France, where there has been significant investment. I noted in Belgium, it took €1 billion initially in infrastructure over a 6-year period, and that was it produced fantastic results. What specific design features from the systems that you observed in Belgium and France should Australia adopt, and what mistakes should we avoid?
Good question, Lindy. We have to avoid having multiple PROs that operate for profit. So it was quite extraordinary while I was in Europe to hear that in 2023, between 2023 and the time I was there, in those 2 years, 4 countries in Europe recognised the mistake of having for-profit PROs and multiple PROs. From Slovenia to Poland and particularly the UK, they realised that their for-profit schemes were a major mistake, and the competing schemes, because there were challenges of opaque reporting, vertical integration. You have recyclers or collectors on board these organisations or running these organisations, and so they have vested interests, and it was really skewing the market. Households were still paying for collection, and they were also paying for through a PRO structure. So double dipping, extraordinary kinds of fraud, and Germany also changed their system, all in the last 2-3 years. So we must avoid that, and which is one of the reasons why I went really investigating, not just in packaging but in other product streams, why so many countries have adopted single and not-for-profit PROs. So if you're going to have multiple PROs, ensure that they are not-for-profit, so that they're there in the public interest, and ensure that they are well governed and well regulated. So those were the key issues, and that was consistent for Belgium, France, Italy, Netherlands, Canada, United States, so many countries I looked at on random, Israel and so on. They have not-for-profit PROs. Whereas here in Australia, we have a mix of everything, and that's why we have a dog's breakfast. So if we can adopt the best practice from overseas, we will surely be adopting best practice for our citizens as well.
Now, you suggest that packaging is ready for regulation in 2026-27. If the federal government moved now, what would industry need to do over the next 2 years to be ready for a functioning mandatory scheme?
Well, firstly, Minister Watt has the capacity under the RAW Act to regulate now. He doesn't need to go through Parliament. He doesn't need to go to the Senate. He has the power in the Act already to regulate any scheme he likes. And with a national EPA, he can also move forward and do that as well. In terms of the detail of how to progress forward, my suggestion is that by appointing an independent transition broker, the government can, in conjunction with the industries and the various PROs in operation already, identify a pathway forward. But I have suggested that they announce their regulations in 2026 that come into effect by no later than 2028, and that they also assign and put forward a bridging finance loan program to support the preferred PROs to grow and to come together, so that they are ready with the necessary reporting systems, auditing systems, accounting systems, and so forth, ready for that national launch date. So that way it brings the parties together. We at least make a start where governments and industry will find greater support. It might be around soft plastics, it might be around big bag, bulker bags, it might be around reusables. I'm leaving that up to government and industry to determine. I have some views, but I thought really it's best in this point in time to make this, set some ground rules and for industry to coalesce around responding to the Minister's directive.
Well, Helen, congratulations on a very important body of work. I'm really hoping that everyone pays attention, particularly government, and we will do our best on PKN to get the message out. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Lindy.